Well, welcome everyone to our webinar this evening featuring Laurel Johnson, the Executive Director of the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. My name is James Murphy. I am the Managing Program Director here at the Episcopal Church Foundation. We have a number of these webinars, as you know, and we are very, very happy to partner with the Episcopal Network for Stewardship, or TENS, so that you can learn their tremendous wisdom in how to move ahead with your stewardship efforts at your congregation. So welcome everyone tonight. Just to let you know, everyone will be on mute. If you have a question, you may type that question at any time into the chat message, and I will be getting those questions to Laurel. So you are
I'm
welcome
just about to start a
to,
webinar.
so, okay, and we're going to start right now. So if anyone has questions, please do type that into the chat message, and I will make sure that Laurel gets that message. So without further ado, I shall let Laurel do the introductions. Laurel, as you know, I will be the wizard in the background, watching all
Okay.
things and protecting you as you move forward. So
Where'd you go?
I will join you at the end.
Okay,
Tell
sounds
me when you
good.
want to change some of those screens.
Sounds good. Okay, well, thank you everybody for making the time to be here this evening, and of course special thanks to Jim Murphy and the Episcopal Church Foundation for creating this space, this time of sharing and learning as we engage in faithful ways to think about stewardship and plan our annual giving campaign. I'm coming to you live from the Church of the Epiphany in Oak Park, California. I know the stewardship chair for the church where I worship is on the line, and I've recognized a few other names here just looking at the chat. So from what I can tell, it looks like we have a lot of stewardship chairs, which is fantastic. And we have, looks like some new rectors who are looking for ideas and ways to engage in the conversations around giving and money in new and dynamic ways. So I'm going to additionally kind of lay the groundwork, kind of a spiritual, theological foundation for the annual giving campaign, and talk about the specific resource that TENS has created to help you and your congregations carry out your annual giving campaign, and then some 10 most effective practices. So that's kind of the agenda for this evening. And I think I want to start with this, with letting you know that the work of TENS, the Episcopal Network of Stewardship, our mission is to inspire generosity and faithful discipleship. And we come from the work that we do in our conference planning and consultations and resource development, that stewardship formation is discipleship formation. And the annual giving campaign is not only a way that we raise funds for God's work in our congregation, but it really, we are in the enterprise of raising disciples. So know that your work and how, as stewardship chairs and stewardship ministry teams and vestries, your work is vital to the life of our wider church, and through helping and encouraging others to walk the way of Jesus through the practice of intentional giving. This symbol may look very familiar. It is one of the icons, or the symbols that are found in the catacombs of outside of the city of Rome. And this is a place where early Christians were buried, and it's said that during the times of persecution they gathered there for worship. And I'm beginning our conversation here because, you know, the early Christians were known as people of the way. Jesus himself said, "I am the way, the truth, the life." And these early Christians were known for their particularity, for their love of God, their love of neighbor, their fellowship, their breaking of the bread together, their work with the poor. They were known for, like that, much like that 70s guitar hymn that was popular way back when. They were known by, the Christians were known by their love. So as people of the way, they engaged in uplifting a community through practices of prayer, practices of worship, and practices of giving. So the question, the overarching question that we want to engage in around developing an annual giving campaign is, again, how does the practice of intentional giving shape us to be people of the way? So Jesus, as you know, said, "I am the way." In his ministry, talked a lot about money and possessions. Half the parables are about money and possessions. And, we know the reason he did that is because just as now as it was 2,000 years ago, money and possessions can be a primary barrier, the primary candidate for idolatry that keeps us separate from God and from one another. It's what we're most likely to put first in our life. We know an idol is working in our life when we are convinced that this idol is going to save us or give us ultimate security. So Jesus was constantly shifting the conversation, drawing people into his story to ask them to ponder what is it and who is it they're putting first. You may remember when the young lawyer, before the parable of the Good Samaritan, the young lawyer asked Jesus, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" And he replies back, "You must love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength." And Jesus is simply repeating the Shema, the prayer, the great prayer of Israel, a prayer that he would have learned and known and since he was a child. It was the great prayer of Israel's faith. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. You shall love God with all your heart and soul and strength. And this is really a repetition, an echo of the first commandment of not putting any gods before me. So when we talk about giving, when we talk about tithing, proportional giving, it is in the context of we give as an outward act and an enactment of putting God first in our lives. We give to acknowledge that all comes from God and belongs to God. The practice of the tithe in the Jewish community was always about giving the first 10%, whether it was coin or crop or metal, to show that, to recognize that all the bounty, all the blessings of this life come from God. And it comes from the abundance of God's work in the midst of community. So when we talk about giving, we talk about it in ways that are connected to covenantal relationship. I am your God, you are my people. I am your God, you are my people. We follow these ordinances, and Jesus came to show us that it is in relationship with God and with one another that we find the meaning of God's kingdom, the meaning of abundant life. So while people of, early Christians were considered people of the way, we don't really refer to one another that much as people of the way anymore, but what has made a resurgence in popularity is, of course, taking pilgrimage, of walking the way, and whether that's the famous walk in France and Spain, the Camino de Santiago, or the Via Francigena in Italy, or following of the footsteps of Jesus in the Holy Land. The purpose of pilgrimage is to journey to the unfamiliar, to find new life in Christ. And as many of you may have been on pilgrimage or take up hiking, you may know that often guides will tell you only carry 10% of your body weight. You focus on the basics of life, of food and a little clothing and a good place to sleep. But really, what pilgrimage does is gives you a bigger perspective of how much we rely on the grace and providence of God. And the annual giving campaign titled Walking the Way will hope to engage these questions of what does it mean to be a pilgrim people, to be a people of the way, to have the ability to see God's grace at work at all times and in all people. So that's the kind of mindset we want to bring, the raising of discipleship we want to bring to our stewardship ministry efforts. And to remind you, the purpose of a stewardship ministry team is to help people grow in their relationship with Christ through the gifts that have been entrusted to them. And many congregations do year-round stewardship, where they do stewardship of time, stewardship of talent, and as the fall season comes, it's when most of us are doing the stewardship of financial resources. So I'll kind of segue in here to 10 best practices of the annual giving campaign. And again, as a reminder, the annual giving campaign is discipleship formation, which means you want a ministry team to engage in bringing this to your congregation, to be able to communicate it in ways that when we engage in this 6-week or 4-week campaign, whatever you determine is good for your context, that we want to uphold this, understand that giving is a spiritual discipline. Giving is a concrete way that we offer praise and thanksgiving, worship. And then giving is sending God's vision, God's dream in your congregation. So the material that TENS has created for this year's campaign is called Walking the Way, Stewardship Narrative Series, an annual giving campaign. And what we do is we recruit bishops, lay leaders, clergy to reflect on the gospel lections beginning Sunday, October 5th, for 6 weeks through November 9th. And we ask them to write a reflection on the gospel reading for that Sunday and weave in a stewardship principle or practice. And you can use these reflections to include in your worship bulletin and to use as a resource for stewardship formation efforts. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about what that will look like. I see a question coming in. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody, they will be available next week. So we're working hard to make sure that they are available this coming Monday. And then the series, the translated versions in Spanish, Chinese, and Korean will probably be available about a month later. Again, I see this question here. The date will begin Sunday, October 5th, and goes for 6 weeks through Sunday, November 9th. Now you'll see that 6 weeks but there's 9 reflections. And the reason for that is for the first Sunday, October 5th, you'll find a reflection for the RCL lection, and then you'll also find a reflection for the Feast of St. Francis. Many congregations use the readings for Feast of St. Francis Day, which is on the 4th, as their Sunday reading. So you can choose. Same thing with All Saints Day. There is the RCL reading as well as the All Saints Day readings, and congregations usually are split about. I've seen about 50% use one reading and the other use the other. So we've added we've added to this as the years have gone by. So what the series includes are 9 bulletin inserts, and again, these are will be available in Spanish, Chinese, and Korean. A letter from your rector/vicar, and the letter from the rector, there's actually 4 letters that will be from the rector, and it's 4 letters to different segments of your congregation. 1 letter is to people that are brand new to your congregation and or just haven't pledged before. There'll be a letter from the rector to people whose giving has remained flat for several years, and there just hasn't been any movement up or down. Then there is a letter to people who are committed proportional givers. They work on making a faithful response every year. And then there's the letters to the people who are known to be tithers. And that letter has a different message than a letter to the people that are brand new to the congregation. So you will be able to look at these letters and use them as a springboard to weave in, what is appropriate for your own congregation, your own context. But they're written in a way that is engaging and inviting and sets the context for the journey that your congregation will take over the next 6 weeks. In addition, there will be a letter from the Stewardship Chair and Ministry Team that announces the campaign, that kind of talks about key dates in the process, as well as a letter from the Senior Warden, kind of observing, reflecting on the journey so far. There's a pledge card, a proportional giving chart, prayers over the people that you can use during your Sunday worship over that 6-week period, blessing over the pledge cards, and then a thank you letter from the rector and a thank you letter from your stewardship team as pledges are received. Okay. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to go through this and then look at the questions, and we'll pause kind of midway through to answer some of these questions that I see coming through, if that's okay. Yes, I see snowbirds. I'm seeing a question here about snowbirds. We will get back to that. Okay, I promise. So this is just a quick visual of what the narrative series, one of the reflections looks like. Again, there is a scripture passage from what people will hear that Sunday on the gospel, and you'll see at each of the reflections has discussion questions, and this is what you can bring into coffee hour, to a rector's forum, if you're engaged in midweek Bible study. This, again, will help generate conversation and dialogue. We know that as adults we learn by discussing and engaging and pondering experience. Okay. So now I'm going to go through the 10 best practices, and at this juncture, Jim, can you bring up 2 handouts? The first is, Okay, one is evaluate your annual giving campaign, and we'll get to that. And the second is the annual giving year-round planning timeline. This is kind of gives you a fairly detailed timeline, broken down by quarters, like January through March. And don't fret. It's great that you're all here and you're starting to plan now. But you can, print this out, and maybe many of you have, and you can write on it, or print it out as a clean copy and hand it out to your ministry, your stewardship ministry team. It's just a way for you to kind of go through and see what you're doing, what you're currently doing, what you could be adding on this year, what you can take on, and areas that you may not have tried, actual suggestions you may not have tried yet. So I'm gonna kind of go through the 10 best practices and not in each detail of the timeline, but I want you to know that's available for you. And back to the other handout, Jim, if you could, great. So evaluating your annual, we're going to kind of begin and end there. But at first, let's see. First, now, one of the things that we want to look at, the first practice, is to analyze the trends. And what you want to do is go back and look at, 5 years is plenty, 5 years of history in your congregation, and look at the numbers. You could go by, looking at these following questions. What is the total amount pledged? Is it up or down? By what percentage? How many pledge cards were returned? As what percentage of that is from the congregation? How many show an increase in giving? How many show a decrease? You can read here and see the questions that you can put the numbers to. You want to look at how many pledges stopped because of a geographic move or because of someone's passing. Did electronic giving go up, and by what percent, and by what level of giver? Okay. Also, can we see the second page? Yeah. You could look at breaking down your numbers by simply doing a very simple chart like this to say, okay, we have 20 givers in the $15,000 to $2,000 range. So you can see visually kind of where your giving trends are. Okay. All right, we'll keep going. So the first set of questions when you're evaluating your campaign, okay, that's good, is what are the numbers? What do they tell us? The second question you want to ask is, and this is reflecting on last year's campaign, you will do this at the end of this year's campaign, is how did it feel? Was the information inspiring, informational? Did it have the right tone? Did you focus on mission, vision, transformation of life in Christ? Or did you focus on the budget and paying the bills? Was the 6 weeks a good amount of time? Did it feel too long, too short? Those are some of the questions that you could, gather a group of 10 people or so, 10 or 15 people outside of your stewardship ministry team, and simply ask them to have a conversation with you about how they experience the annual giving campaign. Okay, that's going to help you discern what you want to focus on for the coming year. And then the third part of the evaluating is to simply, pinpoint, just don't make it more than 3 areas that you want to improve upon for the following year. What do you want to make sure you continue doing? What do you want to not do anymore? And then what's some goal setting? Perhaps your congregation really does respond to a collective call to try to increase giving by 25% of what they gave before. Some people really like going for being told what they should reach for. So that's something that you want to discern in the context of conversation with your stewardship team. Okay, so can we go back to the slide, Jim? Great. So analyzing the trends, you can use that handout to look at the numbers. The link that is provided here on the PowerPoint, that goes to the Episcopal Church website, which is Studying Your Congregation and Community. Many of you may be familiar with this. The site, what it does is you can click on this link and type in the name of your church, your diocese, and it'll give you 11 years of giving history, worship attendance, how many baptized. It'll give you those numbers, but it'll also give you the social, the demographics around a 3-mile radius of your community. So you want to know what is happening in your community. Many of you probably already do, but many congregations now are engaged in walkabouts, community walkabouts, getting to know the people at the schools and non-government organizations and government officials to say, how can we be the hands and feet of Christ in our community? And so congregations who are actively involved in this are not only measuring their success by ASA, average Sunday attendance, and giving statistics and average pledge, they're connecting the success of their ministry by, the high school dropout rate or the literacy rate within a local school. So knowing the context of your community is important, and knowing the numbers. Okay. In this time of evaluation, one of the lights just went out here. I'm not sure what happened. I think you can all still see me pretty well. One of the questions that comes up often is, should the rector or vicar know about what people give? And I can tell you that whenever this question comes up in any type of stewardship gathering I'm a part of, I always hear a lot of muttering and whispering and knowing glances given back and forth, because it's often something that ministry teams just don't know about. They haven't had that conversation, or it's just been some unwritten understanding that the rector doesn't know. So what I suggest is have the conversation. The stewardship chair, you need to be clear on whether you will have privy to the numbers of what people are giving and how much. Maybe in your congregation it's just your bookkeeper and that's it. Or maybe it's the bookkeeper and the rector and that's it. Or it's the bookkeeper, rector, and stewardship chair. Make sure you have that conversation because you want to be well-equipped and well-informed. And, of course, you are somebody who can be trusted with information. You're not judgmental. You can keep it confidential. Having the idea of not knowing, it just perpetuates this conspiracy of silence around money, and that this old notion that money and giving shouldn't be talked about. So have that conversation. As many of my 10 friends like to say, Jesus talked a lot about money, and we should too. So practice number 2, create a Vestry stewardship statement. Angie Emerson, who is on the line here and also on the board of TENS, is one of the Vestry stewardship statement gurus here in the Episcopal Church. She's led many Vestry retreats and helped others kind of walk them through step-by-step of what a Vestry stewardship statement looks like and its purpose. So the purpose is to really become clear about what your leadership in your congregation believes about faithful giving, about God and money. So during a Vestry retreat or at one Vestry meeting where you set aside probably a minimum of 2 hours, you can take the time to reflect on what it is you believe about the role of money and how God gets invited into the conversation around financial decisions. The second part is you ask what you're committed to do. How are you committed to to address the conversations about money and giving, and then what you invite the congregation to do. You can see here I have a sample of a Vestry stewardship statement, and it's broken up into the 3 areas of we believe, we invite, we commit. And some of these become such beautiful statements. They really sound like prayers, and they are prayers. Many congregations use them as collects during the annual giving campaign. And once you go through this intentional, prayerful process, you want to do the second half of the work, which is to think about how you want to communicate this Vestry stewardship statement to your parish. Is it going to be in the worship bulletin, in the e-newsletters? Can it have a place of prominence somewhere that has a lot of traffic? You may begin every Vestry meeting with a stewardship statement. Because Vestry is stewards of the resources, stewards of the mission of the congregation. On the TENS website, if you search creating a Vestry stewardship statement, there's a great article on there by Angie Emerson that'll take you through step-by-step how to do that. The third practice is to create a narrative budget or a mission-driven budget. Narrative budgets are a way for your congregation to tell its sacred story. The power of the narrative budget is in the narrative, the story. So instead of what a narrative budget does is it helps connect the generosity of people in your congregation to the impact that their generosity has on mission and ministry. So the difference is night and day between a line item budget that's handed out at the annual giving meeting where, it's just a bunch of numbers and people get somewhat always a little taken back by what the percentages of going towards salary for staff and clergy. And this just a narrative budget completely shifts the conversation. It looks at the entire budget and breaks it out into ministry areas, pastoral care, outreach, evangelism, formation, worship. So people get a better picture of how their giving is funding mission in the congregation. Oops, I skipped one. Okay, the practice number 4 is to choose your type of campaign. You'll see here the different types of campaign that congregations can engage in. The TENS website has specific manuals for each of these different campaigns, whether it's best of meal, personal letter writing, every member canvas, cottage group. And I think the 2 most important things to remember about choosing a campaign is, number 1, you do want to do something different every 2 years. You don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over. The second is you want to think about how your congregation naturally gathers. Do you come together joyfully during coffee hour? Is that the time where you get the most people and you have the most energy? Or is your congregation one that likes to do picnics on Sunday or gather for wine and cheese receptions? So if you're doing a festive meal or any kind of kickoff for the campaign or wrap-up celebration for Consecration Sunday or Commitment Sunday, make it at a time and in a venue where you find joy, where your congregation joyfully and naturally connects. And I see around the country that most congregations really just have a mix of these. They have a festive kickoff dinner. They invite an outside speaker or have somebody within the congregation give an inspiring talk. They launch the 6-week campaign and then do another festive meal at the end with a very celebratory worship service where pledges are brought to the altar. Okay. The number 5 practice is to be aware of the demographics of people in your congregation and how people give. We need to have various ways that people give. The pledge envelopes are not the only way, and do not take away the pledge envelopes. Especially if you have a lot of people from the silent generation in your congregation, and most Episcopal churches do. They know their number. They like their offertory envelopes. For many of them, it's a Saturday evening ritual to write their check, put it in their envelope, and bring it to church. So if you find yourself having these questions, debates about whether to give up envelopes, I'd say don't give them up, and don't give up pledge card numbers. For the boomer generation, their mode of giving is by check and e-giving. Generation X, their mode of giving is primarily through e-giving, and their primary entryway into life of the community is through participation, whether it's being in charge of coffee hour or doing outreach ministry. Getting them connected into ministry is what is going to increase their participation and their giving in the congregation. The numbers that you see here come from Empty Tomb Research, Methodist organization, in terms of average pledge and giving method. And if you have additional questions about this, I'd be happy to answer. You see kind of in the small notation here that the average pledge in the Episcopal Church in 2011 was $2,410. And number 6, most effective practice you can do is to recruit lay witnesses or to give testimonials. I really should have this as the number 1 practice, or put it in the number 1 slot, because if there's one thing that you can do differently this year or can add on to, this would be it. Creating a place of work in worship, so giving a witness the liturgical space to offer their testimony is very effective. And what I mean by that is that, again, my friend Angie here calls them contemporary epistles. So instead of the second reading, the epistle reading, during the 6-week campaign, you forego the epistle reading and you invite one of your parishioners to come up and give a testimonial, anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes, or 3 to 5, whatever works for you. But you have to do this way in advance. You need to recruit, there's 6 weeks, recruit 5 lay witnesses, work with them, coach them, help them write their journey of giving as it relates to how they value their community of faith. How is giving a reflection of their faith? Where is their joy in giving? What risks did they take? Who inspired them? Because what we want to get at is that giving is part of discipleship, but we're all on a journey. So it's not about the tithing, it's about the trying, and it's to get to the deeper place of why. Why is it important? So this can really change the culture of stewardship in your congregation. People get inspired by other people's stories, and you start this, and people will look forward to it every year as they will be curious to see who's going to be up there giving a testimony. Number 7 is to create a year-round communications plan. This is just a way to keep stewardship top of mind throughout the year. What you see here is a series of ads the Office of Communication from the Episcopal Church came up with for each month of the year. So the month of January, the ad says, resolve to be faithful in little, to be faithful in much. Give to your Episcopal Church. Now you could put these in your newsletter, on your website. You could recruit 12 people to write 5, reflections on stewardship and what that message evokes in them. So getting a plan together is important. If year-round is too overwhelming, think about what your communication plan will be for the annual giving campaign. Number 8 is that you want to have packets, have all the information that one would need about discerning a gift to your congregation. And you can decide if these packets are going to be mailed or handed out after service or hand-delivered. But within the packet would include the individualized letter from the rector, the one that we had talked about earlier, 4 different segments within the congregation. Instructions about the process, key dates, the narrative budget, if you have it, Vestry stewardship statement, if you have it, a tithing or giving chart, which is part of the Walking the Way series, an FAQ, frequently asked questions about pledging, and the pledge card. Now, practice number 9, and this is an incredibly important practice, is the thank you and the follow-up. We often don't thank one another enough for how we support ministry with one another. So this is crucial. We advise that rectors and vicars write handwritten thank you notes to everybody who pledges in your congregation. Stewardship chair, you will also send out thank you notes. We have a sample for you in this Walking the Way series as pledges are received. Having thankathons instead of telethons or begathons. Have your stewardship team come in, order pizza, everybody bring your cell phones, and simply do a call. Call everybody who has pledged to simply thank them for their presence and their gifts that they've offered to the community. Lots of ways to think about how you can express gratitude year-round, both in liturgy, through the commissioning of ministry teams, through year-round testimonials. We look for ways to affirm ministry and connect the generosity of your members with mission and ministry. Number 10 is evaluate, and that's where we started in terms of the 10 best practices. Looking at your handout again, after November, you'll look at the numbers and say, okay, what is it? Look at the trends. Where did you increase, decrease, by how much? Ask yourself those same questions about how did the campaign feel, and make sure you do a debrief and reflect on what you want to do differently and what you want to continue doing for the following year. So steward leadership, and that's all of you who are on this call tonight. Your gift, your ministry is really to help people move from fear to love in terms of who they are and what they give, both in presence and in financial giving, giving of time. But it's giving is probably the most profound and concrete way that we move from scarcity to abundance. Because we know that when we make that leap of faith, when we take that next step, when we start to practice the tithe, God meets us in beautiful ways, blesses us in so many different ways, and it is a journey that is truly joyful and ultimately transformational. And what you are doing is helping people find the freedom and peace of Christ when it comes to decisions around money. So your work in helping people go from the transactional understanding of giving to the transformational is an ongoing process. And our work, TEN's work together with Episcopal Church Foundation and other partners, our hope is that we can help you do this in a way that is life-giving. I know I'm looking at the time here, so I want to make sure that we leave time for questions. And so let's go to questions. Okay. So what the first question is, any letters geared for snowbirds who spend only half year at our church? The answer to that is no. We don't have any. That has come up often, and that's a resource that we should definitely consider, thinking about how we can help support many of the congregations in Florida and Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and California that where people spend half their time in one locale and the other. I know for many of you, you run your campaigns in January. So that's something that we can think about. Of course, you can use these letters for the fall campaign in January. There's nothing wrong with that. They won't line up with the elections per se, but they still have some value. You could still do a lot of stewardship Bible study information using these resources. The second question I have here, does TENS have a resource for helping to create a narrative ministry budget? That's a great question, and again, something on our list that we want to help kind of give a template that people can use. On the TENS website, if you search ministry budget, I'm pretty sure, I have to say I'm not 100% confident about this. Yep.
Laurel, it's Jim. So for all of the people who've registered, if you do have a direct link to something, you can certainly give that to me and we can send it out to everyone who's participating. The Episcopal Church Foundation Vital Practices site does have a narrative and ministry-focused budget, so we can also send that out if you'd like. So that's
Angie Emerson has several as well. Thanks, Jim. And yes, we have Jim, I will do that. I will send out a sample that we have. When I say we, meaning TENS, and folks on the line here, if you want to email Angie Emerson, she'll be on the participant list. She has several she can share with you, and of course, ECF.
And Kelly O'Connell actually does too, if folks look in the chat. So they have a number of options. So.
Great, perfect. That's
the
good.
next question that's up, Laurel, is really an interesting one, and one that I know is coming up more and more as people are shifting to electronic giving. Could you address that, please?
Right. The question is, I'll just repeat it, seeing someone put a pledge envelope in the plate is a visible reminder of giving. Any suggestions on how to capture that reminder when so many give electronically? And yes, many congregations have plastic, almost like laminated cards that are in the pew that say, I gave electronically. And you simply take that. I mean, it's very simple. You they can be just hard copy printed material or laminated, and you write your name and how much you gave electronically that week or that month, or break it down and have that experience of putting something in the offertory plate. I agree, it's important for children to see, it's important for newcomers to see. It's important, I mean, we are a community that we are moved by symbol and ritual and sacrament, and so the embodied act of putting money in the offertory plate is a real way that we offer the substance of our lives. So it's an important gesture and worship that we don't want to lose through electronic giving. So some services, such as Banco, I believe, as part of their e-giving system, provide envelopes that say I electronically gave. But it's a real easy thing to do in terms of providing something that people can use in the pews.
There's two really important questions coming up, and there's one that I put in your presenter notes, and it has to do with the diversity that's happening within our communities of faith, where people may not consider themselves members, but certainly may be willing to give gifts. Do you have any thoughts about that? And feel free to expand on that, too, as you have people that, are beyond just thinking of themselves as members, as you have these diverse communities and parishes.
Well, I come from a fundraising background. I worked for CARE, the International Relief and Development Organization, for 10 years as Director of Development. I worked with the Red Cross for 4. And so it's funny, when we look at our members are donors. And often, one of our keynote speaker last year, Cliff Christopher, at the 10th conference said, what other organization other than a church gets to be in front of their donors every Sunday? And, I don't necessarily look at it that way, but, how we inspire generosity and faithful discipleship is important to our journey of faith. What is less important is how people give. I mean, if somebody's going to do a year-end gift and that's what they want to do, great. We want to be able to be embraced and be invitational for all ways that people want to give. Is that, I hope I heard the question correctly. Is that how I heard it?
I think that's helpful, Laurel, and it's important to remind people of those differences. There's another question, because I know we only have about 5 minutes left, and I know you want to talk about the TENS conference coming up. But there's been a question asked, is it best to begin with tithing or with sacrificial giving? How do you tread lightly? And this is an important thing, because not everybody's at the same place in their spiritual journey when it comes to giving. What are some thoughts you could offer on some of this?
Well, I think it's important as stewardship leaders in your congregation, whether you're a lay leader or clergy, is to simply speak from your own experience. What does it mean to give? Why do you give? For many people, tithing is often a journey that takes many, many years. So I grew up as a Roman Catholic. That wasn't our tradition. I thought this is something just Mormons and Baptists do. And it wasn't until my rector in the Episcopal Church started talking about tithing as a practice of freedom and a way we put God first in our lives that it started to make sense for me. So why we often use proportional giving is that because everybody's a proportional giver. It's helping people figure out what their proportion is and moving towards a tithe. And you can have the conversation about tithing on your net income, tithing on your gross income. For many people that are just overwhelmed with a lot of financial obligations, tithing on their disposable income, this is what engages people. Now, sacrificial giving, to me, is something that I have not done, really. I haven't really given anything up, even though I tithe on my net income. But sacrificial giving is something that I would like to hear more about, quite frankly. I mean, what do we give up to make these gifts that in honor of a mission and ministry? I haven't met too many people. Well, I've met one, I have to say, but it wasn't who made us, essentially gave away his life savings to an organization as a spiritual practice. So I'm a little bit not conflicted. I'm curious. Sacrificial giving, though, is not the place to start, if that's your question. That's a tough place. Okay.
Well, we're waiting still for one final question. It's still being typed, so we don't have it. Is there anything that you would like to specifically address that's come to mind in some of the questions, or because we have time for one other final question, but I want to give you an opportunity to say any final words at this point.
Yeah, well, I'd like to kind of go back, just point a couple resources to all of you, but mostly I want to thank you and ask for God's blessing on you, because our work is challenging. We are often dealing with people, with congregations that get very anxious about this, and how we help people become less anxious and find the joy and the spiritual depth that comes as a way of how we engage in this is very life-giving and very joyful. So I want to thank everybody for kind of heeding this call to engage in the ministry of stewardship. A few resources I'd like to point you to. Two of these resources come from our board members at TENS. One is called Bounty, 10 Ways to Increase Giving at Your Church by Scott McKinsey and Christine Miller. Christine works with Horizon Stewardship, and she is on the TENS board. And the other is Fearless Church Fundraising by Charles LaFond. He was the canon of stewardship in the Diocese of New Hampshire, and is now in the cathedral in Denver. Again, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship, our website, we have contributing bloggers who, just yesterday we got a wonderful blog from Bishop Kate Wainick in Indianapolis on the stewardship of time and keeping Sabbath. This is a place to kind of just get immersed in the conversations around stewardship, and where you will find this resource, a Walking the Way resource. If your diocese is a member of TENS, that means all the congregations in your diocese will have access to this series. If it is not a member, call your canon to the ordinary, your bishop, and say, why aren't we a member? This is ridiculous. It's $1,000 to become a member of TENS for a diocese. Again, you have access to this terrific narrative series. But you also, if that's not going to be the case for your diocese this year, you can also join as a member, an individual member, or as a parish. So you can look at the TENS website and look, number one, to see if your diocese is a member. And in 2013, we had 72 members. So most likely your diocese is a member. And if not, then join us by an individual or parish levels. Oh, okay, Jim, can you bring up the conference flyer? Are we still? Okay. And the last thing I want to point out is that TENS is hosting the Walking the Way Stewardship Conference at Emory University, June 6th and 7th. Joan Chittister is our keynote speaker, along with Bishop Wright, the Bishop of Atlanta, and Charles LaFond, again, a member of the TENS board. And there's also a pre-conference on Thursday, June 5th, and this is designed for anybody who serves on a diocesan stewardship commission or is in the role of stewardship at a diocesan level in any way, as a staff member, as a lay leader. But what is really exciting for me to share with you is that this conference will be webcast. So just as we are sharing and learning here, the 3 keynote presentations, 4 workshops, and opening worship will all be recorded. And so you can register via webcast and convene your stewardship team to watch these presentations together anytime from June 6th, and they will be up they'll be up on the site through June 29th. So that I am happy to stay on the line and answer any more questions. Jim, I don't know what the parameters are here.
Well, we're wrapped up for the night, Laurel, but I did
Okay.
make sure that your contact information is up on the screen and that people know that they can contact you. Tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow, everyone should receive a copy of the recording and all of the other materials. So, Laurel, whatever
Okay.
extra things you email me by tomorrow
Okay.
morning, include. And just know for everybody that's out there that, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship is a wonderful resource for you to draw upon. The Episcopal Church Foundation that I represent are very happy to have been able to host this opportunity for TENS. And please do know that you will be receiving a feedback survey that should come in your email like now. So you can give us feedback that we can share with Laurel and TENS regarding this webinar. So God bless you all. Thank you all for coming this evening. And Laurel, I'll leave you with the final word.
Okay. Well, I think let me close us in prayer. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious, loving God, giver of all gifts, giver of life abundant, we give you thanks and praise for the blessing of this day, of this time together to draw close to you and to become better stewards of all the gifts you have given us. Gift of family, of time, of relationship, of community, of grace. We ask you to bless us in our ministry, and may we be encouraged and have faithful companions in following the way of Jesus. We ask this through our blessed Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Laurel. Have a great
Okay.